What an awesome morning. What an awesome group of people. It's awesome to be here. I feel like I'm starring in a Lego movie. Everything is awesome. Oh, it's great to be here. We're celebrating this year 25 years in ministry on the mission field. Not that I've been there 25 years. It's not like a prison where they lock you up. And the day after 25 years, you get to go out. We do move around a bit, but that's heart, passion, vision, focus. It's been 25 years. And this morning as I start off, and we've got some slides coming up a little bit later, they're all loaded. Yes? Oh, there's the thumbs up. To read, I need to take these wonderful devices off. I'm coming out of the first book of Samuel, First Samuel chapter 17. And if you've, like myself, grew up in a Christian family or been around the Word, it's a very well-known passage. This is where David meets Goliath. So back to Sunday school this morning, but God took me here in the latter part of last year, and I've been dwelling in there and drawing more and more, and I think it is a great launching pad for. He just spoke to me in this passage that we see a pivot. We see God pivot. We know, as we've come from Christmas and as we go into Easter, at Christmas we celebrate unto us a child is born. Unto us a king is given, and he shall be of the lineage of David. So right here in chapter 17, David, as he is described by Goliath, a ruddy youth. Someone came up and told me the term ruddy means you have red hair. I don't know if he has a red hair. I'm old, but I'm not that old. I declare I was not there. But that is the eyes of his enemy, who was a ruddy youth. And we know in this passage that armies of Israel had gone to battle those of the Philistines. And they are arrayed in the valley, one group on one side and one group on the other. And Goliath would come out each morning and each afternoon and challenge the people of Israel. And in verse 11 we read, "And when Saul and Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid." And basically Goliath laid down the terms and conditions of warfare. He said, "You bring out your one a bigger guy, and I am our one a bigger guy, and we get it on. If you win, we will be your slaves. And if I win, you'll be our slaves." And that was the terms of the contract. And he came out, and David, we know that David is called in from the field by his father Jesse, and he says, son, I want you to go to the front of the battlefield. Go to the battlefield in the front and take your brothers some toasted grains and some bread. And for the wana, or the man in charge of their 1,000 that they're in, the man over, take them some cheese. It's good to know the things of the world today are still much the same. We know how to grease the wheels. And it was the same back then. And David goes on a lunch run. That's what he was doing. He was called in from feeding the sheep and tending the sheep and looking after the sheep and goats. I don't know what he had. I don't know whether it was blackface suffix or what. I don't know. I wasn't there. We've already established that. So he comes in and he goes up to the battlefield. And I know you get, as you read the scriptures, a little bit in there, and he says, and he leaves the gifts with the man who was put in charge of that. So that tells me David wasn't probably the only one going up to the battlefield. He wasn't Robinson Crusoe on this lunch run. Because if they put a man in charge to look over the things that come up, well, obviously you need a man if there's more than one. And David goes up there and he drops it with the man in charge, and he hears Goliath. Then as he talked with them, there was a champion of the Philistine by name of Goliath came up to the armies, and he spoke according to the same word. So David heard them. And all the men of Israel that saw the man fled from him and were dreadfully afraid. But we read that this is not the first day of battle. This is not the second day of battle, but this is the 40th day of battle. See, God has an ability. As we read on a little bit further here, in verse 14, David spoke to the men who stood by him, "What shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" So for 40 days, Goliath came out and spoke. And the people of Israel feared greatly. I don't know, other than God, why, if Goliath was so big and he was so strong, why was he waiting 40 days? That speaks to me of God has the ability to hold a circumstance. And David doesn't turn up on the 7th day, he turns up on the 40th day. On a lunch run, and we see God pivot. We see God's pivot. We see our future pivot. We go from living under a covenant where we do the Passover as we start to take steps forward till we see the coming of the great I Am Son, Jesus Christ. David turns up on the battlefield and he hears Goliath. He is an Israelite like the rest of the Israelites. The whole army hear Goliath and they fear. David turns up, a ruddy youth. He hears Goliath and he says, "What shall be done?" Same enemy, same God, but he hears a challenge. What shall be done for he who removes the reproach from Israel? There's a pivot. Same circumstance, same enemy, same God, but now a ruddy youth turns up. What shall be done? And they explain, well, it's pretty easy, Bonner. You get the chickie babe, and you don't pay taxes. That's what gets done for you. See, he hears an opportunity. He doesn't hear fear. He hears an opportunity for a breakthrough. He hears an opportunity and he says, "What shall be done?" Well, you won't pay taxes. No GST, no GST, no VAT, no stamp duty, no transfer tax, no income tax, no taxes for you, your family, your dog, your cat, forever. Tax gone. But right here we see a pivot. And the words pass around and his brothers hear it. And if you're a younger sibling, you understand what David was facing. The brothers turn up and they want the spirit of slap to rise up. You insolent. As only an older brother can describe you. You insolent young man. Who have you left looking after the sheep? We know you just wanted to come up here and have a gawk. We know you, little man. Who's the younger sibling here? And he turns to them and says, "Is there not a cause?" He turns to each and every one that was in his earsight. Is there not a cause? See, God has an ability. God has an ability to hold circumstances. He has an ability to hold the battle. For that right moment, that right time, for that thing where he will use you, he will use me to pivot. He will use us to change the course of the future. God will put you in places and situations where others around have lived in fear, have lived under oppression, have lived under struggle, but he'll drop you in the place. And it won't be on the first day, it won't be on the second day, it'll be on the 40th day of battle because he's held it. In my mind, Goliath should have taken him on the third day while they were napping. If I was Goliath, I would have come out at lunchtime because they knew I was coming out morning and afternoon. I'd be sneaky. I'd come out at 2:37. They wouldn't be expecting that. And just start going nuts. But God held it. See, God has that timing. God knows the end from the beginning. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We are the on earth as it is in heaven. He is looking to use us. He's looking to use us to change history. Whether it's on an individual level, whether it's on a community level, whether it's on a church level, whether it's on a national level, or it's on an international level. David was on a lunch run. And he was making steps for the Son of God to come onto earth when he was sent on a lunch run. And Saul hears this. Now, we know Saul from the description given to him. He stood head and shoulders above everybody else. And on the 40th day of battle, the man in the situation in this war who stood the chance to lose the most, because if they lost, at best they killed him. At worst, they eunicized him. I don't know if that's a word, but it is this morning. Because we're trying to keep it a little bit PG. They would have unicircled him. Unicycled him. Whatever they did. Wasn't there. Don't know how to do it. I gelded a horse once. Didn't make a career out of it. And then they would have dragged him out on feasts and festivals and thrown fruit and whatever and poked his eyes out. It would have been a living hell. But here's the man with the very most to lose. A young boy turns up and all of a sudden, this is the best idea we have had? Have you not seen this dude? Out of all these people, this is the best? But see, that's God. On the second day, if David had turned up, it wouldn't have gone anywhere. See, that's where you've got to look above your ability, your strength. You've got to look above whatever. You've got to look, not the person in the mirror, but look at the God that's in me, because no longer I that liveth, is the Christ that liveth in me. And you might think in your own natural mind, okay, I've got the faith to do that, but will they even listen? Well, they won't listen on the first day, but on the 40th day, it's the greatest idea they've had. Because at any moment, Goliath will go nuts at 14:37 in the afternoon when we're not ready. So David's brought in and Saul begins to dress him in his armour. And David cries out, I can't move. Because I can imagine if Saul was head and shoulders above everybody else, and they didn't have any titanium back then, she would have been the old heavy-duty brass, or whatever, I don't know, I wasn't there, I'm not a blacksmith, but it would have been heavy. And he says, I can't move. So he goes down to the creek and he picks up 5 rocks. Someone might say, well, Goliath had 4 brothers. Oh, I don't know, I'm not his cousin. I wasn't there. Whether he has 4 brothers, 3 brothers, 2 brothers, no brothers. David went to the creek and picked up 5 rocks. Because David had to stand in his own gifts, his own ability, his own faith, his own skill set, and his own muscle memory. Because I'll give you an example. Where I live, I go for a walk in the morning and the afternoon, just like Goliath, but I'm not trying to take over anything other than overweightness. I see the boys out there and they're catching rats and mice to sell. You know, you go to the shop here and you're on a road trip, you get your lollies and your sheets. Well, we get rats on sticks. Or mice. Or you get down, you're going shopping and you want to have a snack instead of a biltong. We've got biltong Maoris. But they're out there. But I'll watch them as they're walking along and they're making noise. You can hear them before you can see them. But as you're walking around listening to them and listening to talk about me, I'll see a bird and boom, drop the sack of traps, pull out their caddy, bend down, pick up a rock. Whoosh, missed. See, the birds in my neighbourhood know at 39 metres I'm dead. 40, I'm okay. 42, no problem. None whatsoever. And they can sit there and watch them. Oh, you're 43 and a half. Watch the stone go that way, watch it go that way. You don't have a chance, boys. So when David went down, and we know the story, he picks up the rocks and he kills Goliath. But I'm pretty sure, and we know it, he says, I killed the bear and I killed the lion. I bet you the lion wasn't the first shot. And I bet you the bear wasn't his second shot. And I'm pretty sure Goliath wasn't his third shot. By the time he took the shot at Goliath, that was probably 1,977,764th shot. He knew how to use his tool. God knew it wasn't going to take the biggest sword, it was going to take the smallest, most accurate rock. And see, God has that ability. He pivots history, he pivots time, he pivots future on a young boy on a lunch run, using his gifts, his talents, his muscle memory. And guess what? God knows everything about you. For this ruddy youth, that's what it looked like. For you, God will drop you into places, situations, and in times with the muscle memory that you have, with the gifts and skills that you have, with the faith and the experience that you have been through. Because David couldn't stand in Saul's anointing. David had to stand in his anointing. He had to stand in his gifts, his talents. God held the battle for 40 days. God had put him in the field where he had practiced with that sling for I don't know how long. And he had sent the other enemies for him to test his skills. David was the right person, the right time, because God had orchestrated it. And just like David, you are the same. Because no longer you that live, but the Christ that liveth in you. The things that you have passed through, the faith that you have stood in, your gifts and talents, whether that's baking a cheesecake or a word in season. God is holding the battle and dropping you into places and seasons where history, time, and future will pivot. You might be on a lunch run tomorrow, and the future of mankind will change because God's got you ready. I'll bring up the tiles, the pictures. that's 26 years ago now. Long-haired prawn farmer from Ilbilby, population 8. Left 7. I think it's 6 and 4 dogs now. The whole Ilbilby hasn't changed much. The Ampole service station is now a Caltex. I've been on the farm. I was turning up to church. I got my life right back on the Sunday after the New Year's on 1997. New Year's Eve 1997, I said, what I'm doing is not working. I'm going back to Jesus. Following Sunday, I was in church crying, repenting, turning my life around. May 1998, I'm in the middle of Africa. Playing with the rainbow here. Pivot. Prawn farmer from Ilbilby. We were on the trip, and on our missions team, we had the pastor, the pastor's wife, the elder of the church, and 2 youth leaders. Well, I'm going to go and carry bags and go with them for 2 weeks. They're going to go backpack for 3 months. Sounds good to me. I booked a ticket to Zimbabwe, but we were going to Zambia. Back then, you got paper tickets. No one SMS'd you anything because we didn't have a phone to SMS to. We took cameras. You loaded up with bags of film And you went and you take your photos, and when you get back, as you're flying back, you're taking the spew bags from the back of the church, because the back of the chair of the plane, because that's where the discount development was. Who did that? I did that. You send them off, they send you a bill, that'd be $9,377,000. Can I buy a country instead of paying for my film to be developed, please? But for me, my life pivoted. I was hanging out with a group of people from church, going on a mission trip, and I thought the biggest thing I can do and serve would be to carry their bags. Bring up the next tile. We turned up and we were dragged out onto just on the highway, the Great North Road, Cape Town to Cairo, just off the road. We went 20, 30 metres. We're working with a church. They're going to plant a church, and they set up the equipment. We had our reel-to-reel projector, which we showed the Jesus film on. We'd even carried one from Mackay State High School or whatever it was to replace one that had blown up. And we'd sit there and we'd preach the gospel. We'd show the film. Then while someone was rewinding the film, someone would preach. And if you wanted to really mess them up, you could go, doing good, keep going, keep preaching. And rewind it by your hand, because the mechanicalism had broken 10 years ago. So you had to rewind it with your finger. Or you could convince them to rewind quick so I could speak quick. And we preached. And we were amazed. Someone said up, who wants to give their life to Jesus? Put your hands up, then come out. And hundreds of people would respond. We're amazed. Showed the last film where Jesus was persecuted, and we said, if any after it would come out, those who are sick, line up here. Those with demons, line up there, we'll pray for you. Hundreds came out, we prayed, they got healed, they got set free. It was amazing. We still do it today. People come out in the hundreds and respond to the gospel. People come out to be prayed for and to be healed and set free because the gospel hasn't changed. For 25 years we've been doing it. We'll do it for another 125 years or until he returns. I might even do it when we're in heaven, just to make sure, in case someone snuck through. I don't know. We haven't been there yet. But you know, the gospel hasn't changed. The power of God has not changed. His heart, his passion for people have not changed. 25 years on, we still hear testimonies. We still people saved, set free, healed. We'll bring up the next picture. Back in early 2000s, I got a phone call. It's a pastor, and he says, a hospital's just rung me. And I said, God has an ability to hold the war. The sister to my home economics teacher, go figure, from Tully, rings the pastor in Mackay to say that Mackay, the people in Mackay have rung me about some hospital beds sitting under a tree. They're going to throw them away or dump them unless you want them. Now, how that works, I don't know. But I know God can hold the battlefield. When your connection is the sister to your home economics teacher from 20 years ago, only God. Only God. Anyway, they ring up and say, we've got this medical equipment. My answer is, it's not what we do. We preach the gospel. Why would we change what we do? People are still responding. People are still getting healed. People are still getting set free. Why change a good thing? And it's great. We'll bring up the next tile. Because on Monday morning, after the chaplains have been through the hospital, people are healed. People are set free, and the hospital is emptied. But my answer is, it's not what we'll do, but I'll ask. And I asked, and the people across the other side of the desk tried to come across the desk and give me a kiss. A yes will do. And now we're in multiple, I think it's over 12 hospitals. The team just grows, the chaplaincy just grows organically. We don't plan it, we don't devise it, it just happens. You see, God has a heart and a passion to reach and impact people, and He's going to hold the battlefield, and while you're on a lunch run, He's going to drop you into a situation and in a plane, in a place, and for a time such as this, where your gifts, your talents, your skill sets, and your muscle memory will line up with what is needed at that exact point in time. Because He wants to empty hospitals. He wants to transform lives. But He's coming to earth from heaven, and you're it. It's not always it in the front row. You're it. Prawn farmer from El Bilby. Had long hair. Marine biologist by training. Prawn farmer by skill. Not the man you would pick. But he was. And we get to invade people's lives, whether it's through wheelchairs to crutches. We got a testimony back about a month ago. A young girl, she'd received a wheelchair through a member of our church who was on a contract deep in an area, deep in the valleys, and God, as only God can, she received a wheelchair. And we sent a wheelchair, but she was a girl, not a girl. I didn't know. I wasn't there. I just sent it. From the day she received that wheelchair, she began to walk. For the first 7 years of her life, never walked a centimetre. Never got up, dragged herself around, received a wheelchair, which we always pray over the stuff. We just trust God. See, you can get in your mind that the only way someone's going to be healed is, well, it was through a thing made of metal and plastic delivered. No one preached, but God got the glory. Now, there's an old saying, always preach the gospel, and if you have to use words. Well, we not only didn't use words, we didn't even turn up. And we get a video message, back when we used to have film. Now they send you whole videos on the phone. Here she is, she's not stable, but she's not in a wheelchair. And her parents are praising God. But God is not what we do. But I'll ask. Bring up next door. Got an email from Hong Kong. Don't know anyone in Hong Kong. Been to the airport in Hong Kong. But I don't know anyone. Saying, there's a place and someone in Port Macquarie or somewhere like that's got 300 wheelchairs. Do you want them? And I said, by chance, are you related to the person in Nigeria whose uncle was a banker and can't find any living relative? And I'm it. I thought it was one of those deals. Yeah, rightio. Someone's been on my Facebook stalking me, setting me up. But anyway, we're now 100 and something sewing machines later, and I got 200 plus sitting in Gold Coast. Well, it's not what we do. We do medical, didn't you know? We preach the gospel. Our lists is getting a bit longer here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, but I'll ask. Man, sewing machines, whether it's a young girl in our church who has a passion for fashion and is wearing anyone she's related to, their sewing machine has been worn out or overused. But she has a gift, she has a talent. Why not? Or whether it's ladies in a village, or we convert electric machines to hand-powered machines or foot-powered machines. Or or in an orphanage, and there's some stuff up the back there from Caleb Centre or orphanages, or in a hospital for mental patients. I struggle to articulate it, and it's every Sunday. They're prisoners, but they're mental patients. So they get locked up because we'll leave it there. And the person in charge of the women's section is a qualified tailor and trainer and seamstress. This is a thing. It's not what we do, but we ask. A couple of sewing machines, we took them into the autism centre. And one of the guys, I think we might have a little bit left of the stuff up there. We're sorry, the range is quite small if you're interested in buy it, but it's what we have left. And his story with his family, his father ran away years and years ago. The mother was raising him, and we've helped that family out. One year, the rains come and washed her house away. I mean, it washed the house away, literally, figuratively, in reality. And we built them a house, and they never knew what would be. She, as a mother, trying to survive, she would have to lock him into her hut and go and sell tomatoes and just face the mess when she came home. She didn't know her son was autistic. She just dealt with she had no idea. So he got diagnosed, and he was coming along the centre, and he's learning computers and learning this and learning that, and then sewing machines turned up. And he was like a duck to water. You can go to Caleb Centre any time, and all you will hear is that's the sewing machine. What's happening? I've got a contract. They want me to stitch this up. Keep going. Go there another day. What are you doing? I've got another contract. For a mother didn't know what future would hold, what was this going to look at, and all of a sudden, not only is he earning money, but he has a passion, he has a desire, there's a place in society he fits. You want some sewing machines? Well, it's not what we do. We do medical equipment. But I'll ask. Emmett, who plants churches and raises, wonderful organisation, plants churches, raises up leaders in an refugee camp up in our northwestern part of the country. They came in and, well, what can we do? What can we do? Well, here's some sewing machines. They're turning out uniforms. They're turning out clothes. They're turning out dresses. They're turning out absolutely amazing communities coming together and plan and purpose for a group of people that were relocated from a country sent to another country with all what they stood up in. And they're beginning doing life with a purpose and a plan and a hope. But it's not what we do, God. But I'll ask. Because it's not what you do, but it's definitely what God does. Fantastic. They came and saw me the week before we left, and they said, they wrote an official letter. I don't read so much. I just listen. And they said, could we please maybe somehow, possibility, if it's not okay, it's okay, but we'll do it. Can we have 5 sewing machines? We want to take them to a refugee camp in Zimbabwe. No. How many people are in the camp? About 11,000. Well, 5's not going to do it. Why are you asking for 5? You need 30, 40, 50, whatever. I think you're a bit short, selling yourself short with 5. I've only got 200. I'm going to be looking for someone to take more than 5. We ship, we don't store. We're not TTN storage. We're TTN shippers. Our job, we're like Australia Post, we just get it delivered. Lift your vision. So I'm saying no to 5, but let's talk about 25. Let's talk about 30. We just trust God, we'll get it there, the runs will come in to ship it. But there's sewing machines. I'm an evangelist. I run an evangelistic team. What am I doing with soul machines? I don't know, but it's God's plan. Bring up the next picture. Sometimes God will get you to do things and they might not look like there's an end goal. We're same group, Emmett. Somewhere, somehow, they got onto this hospital prison and they found 130-something prisoners basically starving to death. The short and the tall of it is, Department of Health said it was the prison's job to feed them because they're prisoners. But the prison says, yes, we're holding them and there is some case, but some of these people have never been caught, they've never been charged, there's actually nothing against, no official case against them. We're holding them until they get to a point, mental health-wise, that we can begin to process them. So they're the responsibility, we're just holding them on behalf of the Department of Health. So it's your job. So it ended up being nobody's job. And they were surviving on grits or cracked maize. And it was boiled. And for lunch, we'd have it boiled. And for dinner, we can have it boiled. If we had some weevils in it, it came with weevils. If it had bugs in it, it came with bugs. If it had cockroaches, it came with cockroaches. All boiled into it. Breakfast, lunch and dinner, year after year. So Mavis came and saw me. Can we do something? Not what we do, but I'll ask. We've been supplementing their diet for 2 years now. Once a month we go in and they cook them up. Whether it's Christmas lunch, Easter, it's Easter lunch, but once a week, once a month, they do fellowship with them, as well as peanut butter and sugar and milk powder and beans and kapenta and whatever else we can add that can store well and be added into their diet. And you think, God, these people is your plan. Like, when are you going to empty this place? When is everyone going to be of their right mind? And I just want you to love them, son. I'll take care of what I'm going to take care of. I'm just asking you to feed them. It's not my job to know what the outcome's going to be. My job is to say, it's not what we'll do, but I'll ask. I asked, and 2 years later, we're still feeding them. We've put water tanks in, we've cleaned, we still have a cholera outbreak, we've kept them basically cholera-free, and sometimes, God, your role is only going to be loving some people. And they may not even understand that you're loving them. They may not be able to respond or testify. They may not be able to share of God's greatness. But sometimes God just wants you to love people, because God is love. And if we pray, our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name, let your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Well, if we're here, we are that love. It's not what we do, but I'll ask. Bring up the next tile. I'll finish up. And in the container, whether it's through Angela or through our team members or through our chaplains, the stuff that our popcorn packing, whether it's shoes from Aussie Soles or stuff for babies or washable sanitary. I just shifted for over 5 tons of stuff, I'll call it stuff, made by a group of ladies outreaching to other ladies, sewing. They turned a man shed into a sewing shed. I mean, there's a battery of industrial sewing machines, and they're making washable sanitary pads, school uniforms, baby blankets, scrubs for hospitals. Oh, the list goes on and on. They say, what do you want? We'll make it. And if we don't want it, we don't make it, God will give it to us. I just spent a week moving 5 tons of it from Maryborough to the Gold Coast. I've still got 5 more pallets to move. God's just abundance just reigns. So whether it's a lady who turns up at hospital wanting an abortion because her husband has left, and the doctors call the chaplains in and say, there's an answer to this and it's not medical. Can you spend time with her? Load her up with all the stuff she needs, all the stuff the baby needs, and give her a couple of 100 pairs of brand new high-priced thongs, who's given to us by a businessman who's not a Christian, but is given to us hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands, where she can sell, raise capital so she can be a charcoal seller, because she sells charcoal because it sells daily, 3 to 4 times a day, it's cash in hand, it puts food on her table every single day, and she can sell it in small batches of time. It suited her. God, you're amazing. Or whether you're putting washable sanitary pads into the hands of all the young girls in a refugee camp to give them dignity. So his name shall be lifted up. We'll bring up the next tile. I'm almost done. A couple of years ago, we got asked to be involved with an autism centre. And we did. I stood down from management. We remain in the role of donor, advisor and friend. Still, which changed nothing to what we do. We still do exactly the same. And we started a couple of years ago. We didn't have a clue. I'll bring up the next tile. Nellie is the lady in the black and white shirt, the dress. See, some time back, must be 5, 6 years ago now, Nellie noticed her son, Caleb, wasn't hitting his markers. She knew something was wrong. But in a way that only a mother can, she persisted. Went to a doctor. What's wrong? Don't know. Here's a referral. Took that referral, went to the next doctor. What's wrong? Don't know. Here's a referral. Went to that doctor. What's wrong? Don't know. Here's a referral. And basically sitting in a waiting room with her referral, with her son in the capital, group of doctors walk past, one walks past, asks a few questions, sees a referral, talks to them, talks to the son. Your son's autistic. Hands back the referral, keeps walking. Nellie goes to the nurse in the room. What's autism? So she gets home, she looks around church, because that's where she started, in church, because that's where the people she knew. She saw me and a few other people, and it's a Tuesday, and I said, well, let's meet at our office. I'm sitting in the office, and next minute, people from my church started turning up, and I thought, well, seems like we've got a home group meeting happening. She comes in and says, I've asked you here if you want to be on the board for autism. Cool. First question, what's autism? Let's get out our phones and Google, shall we? Read through. Oh, antisocial, doesn't like groups of people, doesn't like showing. I think I'm autistic. It's a spectrum, you can be on it a different... Well, I'm definitely on the spectrum then. That spectrum will cover me for sure. But it's not what we do, but I'll ask. And last time I was here, I was sharing about how much of a struggle it nearly broke me. I was finished, had enough. Got to a point where we were in a hired building and it was condemned, so that's why we could afford it. And we're holding it together with paint, because that's what you do. If you can't see the problem, it doesn't exist. And I couldn't even raise $19 to buy a tin of paint. So I told God, if I can't raise $19, how am I going to raise $15,000 for a container? You've blown full time. Time to find a new vocation. I've run out of rocks. It's full time. It's like a Tigers NRL season. Not too many wins left. Sorry, had to. Fins up. Nellie's sitting next to the First Lady of the current sitting First Lady, the wife to our President. We're on a trip to East Africa and we're about to board a flight. I was with Angela and Emmanuel. Text comes in through WhatsApp. First Lady's visiting the Caleb Centre on, it's like 2 days later. Because that's how she moves. She doesn't give you a warning, she just turns up. I said to Angela, because Angela's got an events hire business, I said, you're going to ask us to provide tent, marquees and decoration for the First Lady. We get to the next transit point and there's the SMS. The First Lady turns up. They set up, they do this. She said, this land, I've told council to give it to the Caleb Centre. This is your land. This is my project. I'm going to champion this. This is my project for Central Province. We cannot have we cannot do as little as what we've been doing. We've got to do more. We've got to do it from the top down. We've got to change. So we're going to build a class. We're going to build a block of classrooms, an administration block, a hall, whatever, wall fence, borehole, whatever else you need to tell the architects. They'll draw it in. We will build it because it has changed. See, Nellie as a mother held on. I want to know. She got a diagnosis. And there was a pivot. Not just for Caleb, but for every family with autistic children or family members. The future changed. Why did it change? Because a mother held on and hungered for a diagnosis. Then she turned up in her church. She looked for her brothers and her sisters in the Lord and said, will you help me? And the God held the battle. Because if you were picking me to write the National Strategic Plan for Autism for a country, you're nuts. It's not what I do, but it's what I did. I cut and paste off Google up a blizzard. It's 114 pages long. We didn't have a clue on what we were doing. Not a clue. But you know what? We had the gifts and the talents and the faith and the fortitude to hang on. To make a start when we didn't know we shouldn't have. Because that's how God works. God doesn't use the tallest man in the country with the sharpest, best-made sword. He brings the boy in from the paddock with a handful of rocks to pivot the future. God used a mother who is a teacher to pivot our country. Nellie's been working with a hospital group from India, and they fly her around nation after nation after nation throughout Africa. And she encourages families and people with autism, and in her, she shares her testimony, she shares her faith, she shares what we have done to encourage, to uplift, and to encourage. And they pay her to do it. So she didn't not only pivot for her child, her town, her province, but her nation, but she's leading the other nations. What more you? Her only qualification is she was a mother with an autistic child with a heart. God never told you I'm going to transform a continent through you. See, the armies of Israel heard Goliath and they were in fear. David heard Goliath and said, "What shall be done for he who removes the reproach of Israel?" Natalie, like so many other mothers, heard something that should have pushed her down, squashed her down, depressed her. But she heard, what shall be done? What can be done for every family in this hospital? For my town, for my province, for my country, for my continent. What can be done? And I'll bring up that last tile. When David had defeated Goliath, King Saul asked David one question. Whose son are you? And I challenge you as you're in this church, whose son are you? Because no matter how great the victory is, it'll always come back to, which house of God are you from? Who are you under? Who's your oversight? Saul didn't ask him, who taught you to use the sling? The first question in Saul's heart was, whose family? Whose family do you belong to? I encourage you. God's got you on the 40th day of battle, dropping you into places. Your skill set might be baking, might be sewing, might be prophetic. I don't know. For me, that's what it looks like. For David, that's what it looks like. And for you, it'll look very different. But it always centers around one little message. God loves you. And yes, sin may separate us from God. It may oppress you. You may be walking in the fruit of that. You may be oppressed by that. But He made a way through His Son, Jesus Christ, where David, he was of the lineage of David, where our future pivoted. It was to pivot in, to bring in Jesus Christ, to make a way, to die for our sins, to take our healing onto the cross, where He said it was finished. But He stands at the door of your heart and He knocks and says, can I come in? If you are in that position today, I'm going to hand over to Pastor. There are people who want to stand with you and begin your walk with Christ. Amen?